Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host tonight. I am the Assistant Director of NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness North Carolina. I am so glad y'all are here. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community around topics of mental health. Tonight we'll be talking with Deland Thomas, the executive producer of an important film that will be released this August. Hush, Help Us Say Help, H-U-S-H, is a 90-minute documentary about Black mental health and racial trauma. Through cunning and compassionate storytelling, Hush looks at historical, social, political influences, all these things that factor and weave their way into suffering and that occurs with mental illness and is associated with mental illness in Black communities. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guest. Then we will take time out for a video of the week, and finally we'll answer questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience, live with Facebook Live and on Zoom. All right, now we're going to pause for a quick word from our sponsors. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Division of Mental Health, Disabilities, and Substance Use Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. We truly appreciate their guidance and their support. Now, without any further ado, such an important topic tonight. Deland Thomas was born in Jamaica and raised in Florida. She's a 2016 graduate of Florida Gulf Coast University, where she earned a bachelor's in health science. An advocate for mental health, she's been very involved with the development of Hush. She's also working on a separate project, her own project, that will enhance the lives of young Black girls through the educational practices of yoga and nutrition. That sounds really good to me. I'd like to get involved with something like that. Welcome to Deland.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me, Peg. I really appreciate it, and I love what you guys are doing, and I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I think our missions share so much common ground. So we always start with getting to know our guest, your background, what linked you to mental health. So tell us your story in a nutshell.
Yeah, so you gave a brief description of my bio, but I was, like I said, born in Jamaica, spent most of my time in Broward County before coming to FGCU here in Fort Myers. And just through personal experiences and the connections that I made during high school, as well as in college, just kind of taking a peek behind the curtain and kind of seeing real life what mental health looks like, and on kind of the opposite of what it looks like when we aren't where we want to be, and the effects that it has on ourselves as well as friends and family alike. So I will say that it was very hands-on experience going through that, and meeting people and hearing their stories.
I'll bet it was. You just have some fascinating stories to tell yourself, and hopefully we'll hear some of those. I also want to comment on the imagery you just used and peeking behind the curtain. That hasn't come up on the show before tonight, and that's such an apt description for mental health, because all of us to some extent are behind a curtain and trying to project an image of success, poise,
Yeah,
and vulnerability. But the more we can pull back that curtain and get comfortable with being authentic, maybe being vulnerable, the more I think as a community and personally, we're just making great strides in a good direction.
no, definitely. I think that especially kind of just what you touched on with society, I feel like we're so used to producing the perfect image, and we kind of keep the mess behind the curtain. But I feel that as people get comfortable talking about that and comfortable sharing their stories and really showing that life doesn't have to be perfect for it to be worth it, I think that more people are going to be comfortable with acknowledging the things that maybe they're not too fond of, or that they're not happy and they don't usually want to share, and kind of create that culture where people can first be able to acknowledge kind of the bad stuff and then be able to work towards healing from it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think the film that you've been working on is providing an excellent forum, creating a space for role modeling that process. So we're all very excited to see it. You shared with me earlier, we chatted last week, that some of your friends in college, maybe high school, had mental health challenges. What did that look like and how did that impact you?
And I think my vision of what that looked like kind of changed as I got closer to my friends that I made. So before, it was kind of certain things that were unexplained that maybe I took into consideration. Maybe it had something to do with me when it comes to people pulling away or not being able to communicate because they're not in a space to do so. And then as I got closer to certain individuals, realizing that it wasn't stemming from anything to do with me when it came to our relationship and the personal relationship that we were building, but internal things that were happening. And sometimes what that would look like is someone who has a lot of ambition, has a lot of talent, maybe not being able to fully achieve what society tells them they should be able to do. And you're thinking, on the outside looking in, oh, maybe this person is just lazy. Maybe they're not just applying themselves. But I think it goes deeper than that. And that's something that I've definitely learned as I connected with individuals throughout my high school and my college experience. That there's way more under the surface that kind of aids in the things that we see on top of the surface level.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that you bring that example up. NAMI offers a class called Family to Family where we teach friends, loved ones, family members.
I'm so sorry, Peg, I'm unable to hear you.
Ruh-roh. Let me see what I can do here.
I can hear you now. I'm able to hear you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. I was mentioning NAMI Family to Family is a class where friends, family members, loved ones learn exactly what you just talked about, that you might see behavior that on the surface looks like laziness or selfishness.
Yeah.
When you go a little deeper and learn this is what a mental health diagnosis looks like, this is what it does to the person's energy, this is how much work it takes them just to get out of bed. It's not as it appears. We're not all starting from the same starting point with mental health. So how did you get involved with Hush, the documentary?
Yes. So actually, one of the friends that I did make in college is Antwon Lindsey, and he has always been an artist of different backgrounds, but I kind of shared with him my goal, my end goal, which is, having that program for young Black women. And later down the road, he kind of connected back with me and said, hey, I know that this is your goal and this kind of ties into it. And the things that you're going to learn in going on this journey together when it comes to Hush and from start to finish, connecting with folks for that. Not only am I going to be able to use that in my day-to-day life, but when it comes to forming and creating the program that I envision, that I dream of, I'm going to be able to take those tools and use that for that as well. And so he saw an opportunity to connect me with an opportunity that was going to help me in the long run. And I jumped at it. He explained to me what the goal was, what the vision was. And it was something that definitely resonated with me. And I know that there's definitely going to be a lot of people that are going to benefit from it. So why not be a part of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, our mission is all about bringing dignity, respect, and a space of safety and respect to folks with mental health challenges. So we're all about that as well. So you, as part of your work at executive producing, you've been hearing stories either directly or editing them. What have you learned from doing it?
What I will say, as an executive producer, I am kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where I'm connecting with folks when it comes to getting the film out there, getting the film to the communities that we want to help and to benefit from it. So I have kind of learned that there are a lot of people out there that have the same vision, that want to help other people, and they're just looking for a route to do so. So for example, we met with an organization in town recently, and they told us they wanted to start a program or have something that dealt with the Black community, that helped with mental health, but it just ended up not going anywhere because they didn't have the right tools or the right connections to enter into that community and to be able to really reach folks. And so from working as an executive producer for Hush, I realized that there are people who want to help and people who need that help, and we just need to connect them. And there's sometimes a disconnect with that, even though the intentions are good. So being able to talk to so many different people in different organizations whose purpose is to improve the quality of life for individuals, definitely kind of makes me happy, because I feel like sometimes we focus on the negative in society and in this world. You turn on the news and there's just so much sadness and so much negativity happening, but it kind of reminded me that there's still people out there who want to help other people, and not because they're going to gain something from it, but because they truly want to see people have a better life.
Are you finding that people are not able to get the clinical care they need, or just a variety of services?
I think that one thing that first has to happen is people have to be able to acknowledge that they need help. I think that in of itself, you can't force someone to get help, even if you from the outside looking in can say, hey, you probably need some assistance. I feel like that's the first gap that has to be bridged. And then when people do realize, hey, I do need some help, they don't know where the resources are. And if they do, they may not be able to afford the resources available.
Right. Yeah, that is such a big gap. The affordability, the capacity of the system. Sometimes people, it takes so much to get to a point of saying I need help and making that call. And sometimes what they hear back is, okay, we'll see you in 2 months.
Yep.
And that's very difficult. Are there things that people can do to help someone know that it's safe to talk about mental health? Did any of that come up for you?
I think just creating a welcoming and comfortable environment for people to feel comfortable enough to let down their guard. But first, you really have to build that connection with people. You can't meet someone one day and want them to bare their soul to you the next. You kind of have to build that level of trust and consistency so that they know that, hey, this person really cares about me, and they're not just in it for surface level things. And if I'm able to share this with them and let down my guard, they're not going to run away. They're not going to judge me. And sometimes they don't need you to find a solution for them. They just need you to listen. And having an ear to listen, where you're not offering, suggestions, or you're not judging them, can really help.
That's such an important piece. It's so tempting to want to fix someone or to bring someone a list of therapists or agencies.
Someone you care about and that you see how it affects them.
Right. You have that helpless feeling, but most people don't want to be fixed. Yeah, absolutely. So Hush addresses the intergenerational.
I'm so sorry, Peg, it went in and out again as far as the audio. Now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'll keep plugging away. I'm sorry?
Oh, so I wasn't sure if it was on my end.
Okay. Well, I'll try again. So Hush addresses the intergenerational trauma of Black Americans that resulted from slavery. Is there a specific piece of slavery's legacy that the film examines? There's mass incarceration, police violence.
So one thing that Hush really kind of addresses, that is, if you look at it, it's a legacy of slavery, is our dialogue and our connections within the community. I feel that slavery, when it happened, it was kind of pitting everyone against each other. It's like crabs in a barrel. And that same mentality, even though we're not enslaved today, it still kind of carries on where, well, I don't want to help that person because I want to be successful, and not the thought process of we can all be successful and we can all help each other reach our goals. And that's something that I've definitely seen, personally, as well as just learning more about the film and learning about what the film touches on. It's that envy, that fear that was really rooted in that to keep them, slaves. You might be free physically, but that mentality within, it's still there to this day. The fact that you feel like someone else being successful and being able to do better kind of hurts you in a way, when that's not the case.
I've heard stories too about folks not wanting their family or friends to feel left behind or betrayed if they succeed or they're moving too far ahead. Is that something you've seen or sensed?
I've seen that, and I remember specifically in middle school, and it's something that sticks out to me, but it was like, change is a bad thing. Like, why are you switching up on me? Why are you acting different? And as human beings, we have to change and evolve constantly. But it was like viewed as something negative to not be consistent in where you were then. And where I was in middle school is not where I am today. But it is kind of a common theme of, oh, you switched up, you're acting different, oh, you think you're too good for me now, with that kind of rhetoric that's taught when people do become more successful. And it sometimes does stop people from wanting to reach back and help those who maybe they feel like they left behind, or keeping people close, not because they're good for them per se, but because they feel a certain pride in the loyalty that they have to them, whether that person is good or bad for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It is hard to leave people behind, and it's a shame because with young folks, they're kind of supposed to be trying on different hats and experimenting with identity and who am I? That's how we go through the process and figure it out. But it can be a point of criticism too.
Yeah.
Right. What's the overall goal? What is the team hoping to accomplish with the documentary?
Of course. So number one, we're looking to entertain. We want this to be a visual art piece. It's not just about the history, but it's more than that. We want to be able to educate our community so that people can understand the resources available to them and what they need to do to get to those resources. And finally, we want to empower the community, the Black community, empower them to seek help and to really live a better life and to kind of explore that side of themselves that maybe they weren't thinking about or looking, because the day-to-day grind, sometimes it kind of wraps us up and it doesn't let us go.
Mhm. That is so true. I'm not sure how involved you were in the storytelling part of the process, but was it difficult to balance getting the reality of what people face, but you want it to be inspiring, but also truthful about the dark times?
I feel like the way that Hush is recorded and the way that it's going to be put together, it's going to be honest. It's going to be honest and allow people, because at the end of the day, the goal is for people to realize that they can let that curtain down that we were talking about earlier and truly be honest with themselves and what their needs are and what they've experienced, and being able to acknowledge that. So I don't feel like we had any issues as far as doing that, because it was just people telling their story, educated folks explaining and using their knowledge to share with others. And when you do that, you know, the goal was simple: to help other people see that they can do more and that they can heal from what they've been through and acknowledge that.
I like that answer. It is very liberating and cathartic to find that space where you can talk about things that people normally don't talk about. And that's why NAMI support groups, for example, are so effective and so popular. I'll go ahead and mention now we have support groups for African Americans who are experiencing stress and anxiety. We have a support group for Spanish speaking individuals, for the LGBTQ community. So we're working very hard to create those spaces for underserved communities, for folks who have special needs that, you know, a mainstream support group might be great, but wouldn't understand the language completely.
Yeah. There's a cultural aspect to it as well. So I'm glad that you guys are able to kind of acknowledge that and not just say, well, one size fits all because it's convenient. There are differences.
Absolutely. Right. So you made a comment recently about Hush, that there is strength in addressing things that hurt us the most. What did that mean to you specifically?
Yeah. To me, it was thinking about what we usually depict strength as in society. When it comes to what strength usually means, it's, you know, being able to do anything and take anything and just deal with it, or be able to overcome it with brute strength and force. And I feel that when it comes to talking about feelings, when it comes to talk about what's happening on the inside, sometimes people view that as weak. To share your feelings, to let people know that something has hurt you, is to be viewed as weak. But I think the strongest thing that we can do is face the things that hurt us, the things that you don't even want to acknowledge because it's so hurtful, and then be able to kind of unpack that and acknowledge it, and then be able to move forward. And it's a continuing process, because it's never just a cure-all and you do something and okay, I'm fixed, I'm happy now, everything's great. It's a continuous thing that you have to work at. And I think there's strength in being able to know that that's what you want for yourself, and to be vulnerable. It's easy to clam up and not want to share something that hurts you, and not even acknowledge it, and just to go about your day. But it's another thing for people to be able to really face it and to look at it, all the ugliness, and be able to accept that that's a part of their reality, but then take back their power and be able to say, okay, now that I've acknowledged this, what do I do to help myself and get myself out of this rut?
Mhm. Yes, and I can hear my therapist saying, let's sit with that. Let's sit with that feeling. It does take strength to do that, to sit with that. But if we're going to heal, whether it's a one-on-one relationship or a whole community, which clearly we have a lot of healing to do, and a lot of cultural learning and humility and competence to be gained, that's an important piece that has to be done, right? Okay, so I'm speaking from my perspective, my community, when I talk about the humility, obviously. So let's see, well, how can people be involved in the documentary?
Yeah. So we are actually gearing up to do another crowdfunding event. So people can follow us on follow 838 Films on the website, but also we have an Instagram as well. We're going to be blasting it on Facebook, to where they can donate monetarily to the cause. Every amount helps. But also, if they have resources, what we're looking for is, and the goal, the overall vision is, we have 15 cities that we want to be able to have the screening for the documentary, for the community, and for those who want to help the community. So as far as suggestions or contacts when it comes to venues, suggestions and contacts when it comes to those who might be interested in providing more funding for it, so that we can reach the folks that need to see this, would be lovely and of great assistance. So even if you can't donate something, if you know someone who has an organization or a business who this would speak to, and it's something that they would want to get behind and to help out with, send them our way. We're here to make connections. We've also shared someone has shared the Indiegogo link. As of right now, I don't believe it is active, because we haven't started crowdfunding as of yet. But looking up 838 Films and checking out our website, you can give us your information, and we'd be happy to reach out and kind of let you know more about how you can be of assistance.
Well, go ahead and bookmark that Indiegogo link. That's right there for you. And also, you might want to think about supporting the NAMI walk. NAMI North Carolina has a walk coming up on May 21st. I have to say, I see a beautiful collaboration in our future.
Yeah.
We did a preview of a film called Cured, which had to do with the LGBTQ community and mental health. And we partnered with the local park system, Dick's Conservancy, which incidentally used to be a state mental hospital.
Wow.
And we showed a movie, and we had online viewers, and we had in-person viewers, and we had a panel of speakers. We would love to work with you on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's something that we can definitely talk more about. Even, I understand that NAMI is nationwide, so we would love to connect and really see what we can do about getting this to the community, because it definitely aligns with both of our purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. So don't forget the Indiegogo link, which is in the chat box, and NAMI Walks, NAMI North Carolina. You can support us now and support them next week. So, all right, moving on to something very serious, sad topic. One big concern is the suicide rate among Black young individuals. We know suicide is most common among whites and American Indians in general, but it's declining for those groups. Meanwhile, it's on the rise for Black youths. In recent years, the suicide rate of Black young folks aged 15 to 24 rose by over 50%. What's your sense of why that's happening? What needs to be done to reach teens and young adults?
Yeah, I think, and this is just my personal thought process on it, but I think it's kind of a two-part thing. Number one, we're in the age of social media. Younger kids are now looking at kids their age living these glamorous, amazing, fun, exciting lives that, at least on camera and on Instagram and Facebook, looks very perfect, almost unrealistically perfect. And I feel like they're comparing themselves to that. And when you're comparing yourself to something that doesn't even exist, it's hard for you to ever feel like you're going to measure up. And I feel like bullying is a part of it as well. People have gotten used to hiding behind the screen and saying some things that can be very hurtful, that have very major repercussions. And it's hard to hold these people accountable, because when you have a username and a random picture, how are you going to figure out who you are? But they're emboldened by that. I think another part of it as well is that, home life. Not to speak on everyone's home life, but I know that a lot of parents, especially within the Black community, it's like, I clothe you, I fed you, you're taken care of. I've taken care of all of your physical needs. But I think what's really missing is that emotional aspect. And not making a generalization, but I think we're just now coming into the era where we are kind of focusing on the emotional aspect of things, and doing more than just, I take care of you, I gave you food, I gave you water, I gave you a house over your head. That's it. And I think that a lot of kids might not find, especially when they're going through the things that they're going through from outside and external forces, may not have that working relationship with their caregivers to rely on them and to lean on them when they are feeling sad and when they are going through things, or not feeling comfortable being able to share with that. And when you feel hopeless and you don't have anyone to turn to, or you feel like no one's going to understand, it's very easy to get kind of sucked into that dark hole. And I think that's what's happening. And as far as how can we help and how can we reach them, it starts with helping the community. If we give adults and give parents and caregivers the tools that they need to heal from whatever trauma that they experience, whether it's in their childhood or adulthood, and we create a safe environment for them to heal and to grow, that's something that they can pass down to their children. That's something that they can now teach them. And I think having, even if, we can't control everything in this world, I wish we could, but at least having a safe home space to go back to after a long day, I think that's going to make a world of difference for these kids.
Mm-hmm. I think the young women in your project with the yoga and nutrition are going to get a whole lot of resources out of you and a whole lot of wisdom.
Listen, that's the goal. That is the goal. We want to create a space where, and like you said, for them to explore the things that they like, being able to truly have something to ground them and to kind of combat the external stressors that we and everyone feel, from time to time. So it is something that definitely has my heart, and I'm doing it with, two of my best friends, and we're all working together to see that, and we all kind of have different experiences. So very exciting, very, very exciting.
Indeed. One comment you made that stood out for me is it's impossible to compete with something that doesn't exist. And that is what we have online.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a brand was when I was in high school. It's amazing to me how sophisticated young people have gotten with their online presence and the messaging that they send out. And I can see how that need for approval, that finding yourself, depression, it could get all wrapped up together in a really negative way. In fact, studies have shown, especially with body image, that social media is not good for young people's mental health, young women in particular. And that is the group with the more rapidly increasing suicide rate, unfortunately, among the Black youth, the teens and young adults. A lot to take in there.
I just feel like, especially when, and we're making strides to do better, and that's all we can ask for, but definitely when it comes to young women, not only does society tell us that we're not enough, because it's like, when it comes to selling beauty products, the whole beauty industry is built on making us feel like that we're missing something. they make millions and billions out of telling people, if you just have this, you'll be perfect. If you just have this, you'll be better. So it's kind of like we were already being targeted for that. And so I'm not surprised that that's something that you're seeing and that you're noticing, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made another good point about bullying, that when folks are online, it's easier to be bold. It's easier to strike out. Not only does it not bring consequences, at least not immediately, but you don't see the hurt you're causing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to not develop empathy. Good point from Paulina Mendez, our chat helper, not to mention the Eurocentric beauty standards that are being upheld. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was thinking as you were speaking, Deland, when I was young, I would go to a store and I don't remember there being, you know, it was like ivory white to a little bit of suntan. I can't imagine the message, how that would be internalized, that how painful.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, and it warms my heart to do it because I was a part of this as well. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's something called the natural hair movement. I think for so long, Black women specifically, for us to be able to assimilate into society, for us to get these jobs, a lot of us put chemicals into our hair to make it straight. It's to the point where when I wear my natural curly hair out, people are not used to seeing it, especially in the early days. The natural hair movement took Black women by storm. A lot of them decided that they were no longer going to use this chemical, which long term has health disadvantages, to straighten their hair, to assimilate to what we think society is telling us we should be, and embracing our curls. I think, you know, it's funny, little things like going to Walmart, going to the store and seeing the box of relaxer highly discounted because a lot of people aren't using it anymore. The fact that the Crown Act came about, and this was a movement that I don't remember having a discussion with anyone and saying, okay, we're going to go natural, right? And this is going to be a movement. It's just, to me, it felt like an awakening, because for so long we've been told that our hair is not, it's not for the business. It's not appropriate. It's unkept. And that is something that a lot of people internalize. So seeing so many women embrace their natural curls, embrace their natural hair and rock it, it's more than just a hairstyle. It definitely kind of speaks on the way that we're going. We're learning to accept and love ourselves and create and find things that work for us. So that's why you see a lot of natural hair products now. And of course, a lot of the big name brands jumped on the bandwagon. They're like, oh, you guys want natural hair now. So Pantene has it, and for the curls. But before then, there were a lot of Black women in their kitchens making and creating stuff that would work for our hair, because they were empowered to do so and because they did trial and error. So I've seen a lot of businesses, a lot of Black owned women businesses being kind of springing up and being able to now help the market that we kind of created for ourselves.
One of my favorite news stories, like a pop culture news stories, had to do with the character Michonne in The Walking Dead. And of course, Walking Dead is a zombie apocalypse, and so people are living without modern amenities. And the actress had decided to go natural with her hair. She's African American. And then she got the biggest role of her life, and she didn't have any tension about her hair because of the setting of it. The dreads were absolutely perfect for that role. It was just such a cute example. I loved it. Yeah.
And it just reminds us of how much power we have. I feel like as individuals, sometimes we can feel like we're powerless, that we can't create a change, but all it takes is just one person to decide that, you know, the status quo is not acceptable anymore, to make those changes, and then other people feel comfortable doing so. And that's something that kind of ties back into us being able to show this documentary to the Black community, for us to all experience it together, and to really hear what the documentary is saying and receive that message as one, to know that we're not alone and that we can make the changes, even if the status quo said something else.
Right. And that is it was, I don't want to stay on the hair thing all night, but that is a brutally unfair standard. To have someone's natural hair have a negative label on it. And I remember reading many stories in the news about young women who were called out for violating their school's dress code when there was nothing strictly against the dress code. They were just being slammed for having natural hair. And that's offensive. And gosh, it's really kind of violent socially.
Yeah.
All right. So last question for our interview tonight. What gives you hope?
That's a good question. What gives me hope is seeing those that I love and those that I care about progress and grow and heal from the things that have happened to them in the past. And the fact that this new era that we have, and on another point, social media has that negative side effect, but it has also given a lot of people voices to share their experiences and to make moves and make waves. And that gives me hope that even though, we might be pushed down and someone says, oh, well, we shouldn't focus on that. People have still found it within themselves to really speak about the things that matter to them, that they feel passionate about. And that is contagious. Seeing one person make that decision and then spread it, it's infectious. And knowing that even though we can't change the whole world, and I wish everyone could just be a little bit kinder, but knowing that my kindness is going to be infectious, and knowing that I can at least do that for someone else, even the smallest token of kindness can really, really change someone's life. That gives me hope.
That's a lovely answer. And I agree completely that kindness can be contagious, and that speaking our truth can be contagious, because we give other people in the room permission to do the same.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So we're going to wrap up the interview portion of our show, and we'll be moving on to our video of the week. First, I want to give a big shout out to our heroes working behind the scenes. We've got, as I mentioned, our fabulous intern Paulina Mendez on chat, psychiatric nurse Gail Pruitt on Facebook Live, and of course, thank you so very much to Executive Director Gary Kreitz for always being there. And naturally, our deepest thanks to Deland for sharing your time with us and your stories and your experience. So now for our video of the week, we were so jazzed about this topic, we didn't want to wait until closer to the release date. Thus, we don't have a video clip of Hush. So we're going to check out something else that's pretty neat. This is a segment about pro football player Chris Hubbard of the Cleveland Browns. He was just re-signed for next year. And I have to say, as I watched this clip a couple times over, his face just exudes goodness, in my opinion. He has struggled with mental health challenges, and he has been speaking his truth, sharing his story. He recently went back to visit the high school in his hometown of Columbus, Georgia. This video is created by NAMI California, so thanks to them. Let me make sure that I've got the sound on so y'all can hear it. Let's check this out.
This is home for me, man, and a lot of memories, a lot of friends, a lot of family, and it's just a blessing to be back here to see Columbus grow in such a way.
Well, if you like seeing classic rare cars, drinking a cup of joe, and supporting a good cause, well, you're in luck. The Cars and Coffee Rally in support of mental health awareness is making its way to Columbus. It's hosted by Cleveland Browns offensive tackle Chris Hubbard. He joins us now to tell us all about it.
I was so excited to hear about Chris Hubbard coming to town because, people know who he is. He's kind of like a hometown hero. He went to Carver High School. And the fact that he's brave enough to talk about such a taboo subject as mental illness, that's even greater. I think there are a lot more ears that listen. It's like, wow, you came from here and you're struggling with a mental illness, but you're successful.
Back here to see Columbus grow in such a way.
Well, if you like seeing classic rare cars, drinking a cup of joe, and supporting a good cause, well, you're in luck. The Cars and Coffee Rally in support of mental health awareness is making its way to Columbus. It's hosted by Cleveland Browns offensive tackle Chris Hubbard. He joins us now to tell us all about it.
And I was so excited to hear about Chris Hubbard coming to town because, people know who he is. He's kind of like a hometown hero. He went to Carver High School. And the fact that he's brave enough to talk about such a taboo subject as mental illness, that's even greater. I think there are a lot more ears that listen. It's like, wow, you came from here and you're struggling with a mental illness, but you're successful and you're thriving, so I can do well. And students and the community in general, they tend to listen to stuff like that.
Just seeing the high school the way it is now, it's emotional because you've seen how much it has grown. Bro, this is way better than what we had at all. Way better. No, man, we had none of this. None of this. We were told that if you're going through something, you might want to push through it. Nothing's wrong with you. Be a man. And we never realize it until we get to this deep point in life to where we're like, man, something is going on wrong with me. Another note, man, I want y'all to know about mental health too, man. Mental health is serious, man. Whatever, like, if you're dealing with like anything as far as like depression or anxiety or anything like that in your life, like mental health, like I've been through it myself, because football like really wears on you, man. It really does. Like it takes you away from your family most of all, and then as well as like you putting your body on the line too. So every day you come to work, man, you got to deal with these hostile environments, going through different stages in life. You might be dealing with depression or anxiety, but I had to get some help.
It really touched his heart to be able to go back and have that opportunity to kind of let these young men know, hey, listen, I'm just like you. I saw how it's important to him to break down that stigma, especially in the African-American community, especially African-American males, on how we're just supposed to hold everything up and just suck it up. That's that old school mentality where it actually builds up inside and it creates a lot of stress, which then turns into the depression. Take care of yourself. Talk to somebody if you're going through a counselor or anything, because like you might not know you're going through it, but at that time I was like, man, I'm a dude, man, I'm a man, like I can deal with it myself. But at the same time I was losing weight. I was 305, I lost weight in like a month, bro. Like I went down to like 275. So I had to get all my weight back from dealing with stress and anxiety and going through the different roles and depression and stuff like that.
You can see on a daily basis the issues that we have to deal with in regards to mental health, and for him to take on that issue, it means a great deal to us.
Seeing the young students here today at Carver Columbus High School, I saw myself sitting in one of those seats, and just to be able to talk among those guys brought me back a lot of memories of how I was in school and how I dealt with a lot of things going on.
We hear about bullying.
All right. Nice little giving back vignette for us from Chris Hubbard of the Cleveland Browns. All right. Hope you all enjoyed that video. Now we're going to be taking questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience on Zoom and Facebook. If you're not as familiar with questions on Zoom, you just want to click the Q&A icon on the bottom, sort of on the left of your screen, and we've got 3 questions right out of the gate. This one's from Heather on Facebook. I work in child welfare, and I have been thinking a lot about the historical trauma of family separation. Does Hush mention this?
So Hush does touch on that as it talks about the history of slavery, from traveling by boat over and then kind of that life and what that looked like. So it definitely touches on it.
That's an excellent question. I hadn't thought of that when the whole family structure was disrupted again and again and again. Every time the enslaver wanted to make money by selling a human, they weren't bothered by the person's spouse or sibling or mother being separated from them.
And just let you know, not to give too much away, because I'm really excited for people to kind of get the full experience for the documentary, but it also touches on what happened when they were trying to prevent that, kind of, you know, how we were trying to prevent being taken, or children being taken away from us and so forth. So it's going to touch on a lot, and the goal is for people to be able to acknowledge and to heal.
Good stuff. Question from Paulina. Were you inspired by any works in particular? Resmaa Menakem and Dr. Joy DeGroy come to mind.
So I personally am not familiar, just to let you guys know, I'm not familiar with those works. I think a lot of the inspiration that I draw from is just personal experiences in connecting with human beings and connecting with other folks. Seeing people's humanity, even if it's just a brief glimpse, really inspires me.
I said those names correctly. Question from Gary. How are mental health stigmas and mental health issues experienced differently among Black demographics, urban versus rural, African-American versus African Caribbean, etc.?
No, that's great. As far as rural, I can't really speak on that, but I do know a common theme as far as the stigma is concerned is just that it's something that we don't talk about. It's something that's not acknowledged. And for you to be able to heal from it, it has to first be acknowledged and talked about. It's kind of like, oh, just like in the video, oh, nothing's wrong with you. Like you're just complaining about nothing, like you're okay. Or those who cause that trauma that now people have to heal from, they gaslight the folks that are going through it, because it's like, how can you even say that? How can you pinpoint what's going on with you if you don't even know the term for it, if you don't even know what that looks like, because it's not discussed? I feel like because it's not, people don't talk about it, it's hard for people to really realize, okay, this is what I'm going through. I am not alone, because it's not even a subject that people even try and broach. I am Jamaican, born in Jamaica. My parents are from Jamaica as well. And I feel like as far as the stigma is concerned, I don't think that, and this, again, I can only speak from my personal experiences, I don't think mental health is discussed in the Caribbean either. It's something that I think in this day and age, because of social media, because people are able to share their experiences, people are more open to it, or at least a little bit more educated. But I think for the longest time, what people really had to go off of when it came to mental health and what that looks like is cinema, is TV, is the dramatization of what mental illness looks like, not even what mental health looks like. That's not even talked about. But the worst part, what mental illness might look like. And I feel like there's a fear of people not wanting to put that on themselves or claim that, because they're like, well, that doesn't look good. The way that things look is very apparent when it comes to the Black community. You want to look put together. You want to look like you have it all together. And I think because we're constantly trying to keep up with that, it's hard. It's hard to even acknowledge or even talk about it, to even figure out what's going on and what needs to be done.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. You're packing a lot of good stuff, and I'm not sure which one to respond to first. Yeah, I always wondered about the part about with Black culture and wanting to be very put together and look good. I guess I always assumed it was because, you know, they say you have to work twice as hard and twice as long to get half the credit. And so that sort of appearance thing would be more important. Just, I guess, countering racism and doing your best to project that looking twice as good, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think, and this might just, I feel like when it comes to a lot of topics, there's always a variety of things coming into play. There's not always just one answer. But one thing that I think of when I think about our thoughts on the perception of things, you have to remember, as enslaved people, didn't have shoes, didn't have anything that they owned for themselves. So I think that coming from that and coming from nothing and coming from not being able to have something or anything that you could claim for yourself, I think now we've kind of done a 180, focusing on, and this is society in general, but we're more so focused on, if it looks good, it is good, being put together, holding, being able to flash and being saying, oh, this is what I have. And I think that, you know, looking at especially in the music industry, for example. When it comes to Black artists who have made it, they do not have that level or that background when it comes to being able to be financially stable. But they will unfortunately get into situations where they get this large amount of money, and instead of being able to move smart with your money and being able to invest or think about, okay, what happens behind the scenes, it's invested in cars and money and clothes so that you can show someone that you finally made it. Because for so long we've been told that no, this isn't something that you're going to be able to attain. So I think that the perception of being able to look good and put on a face to the world that shows that you're put together, I think that's us just trying to come back from what was done to us in the past, which is not having anything to call your own.
Another really important point was the not having language to talk about mental health, not having language, maybe to talk about emotions, to talk about trauma, because certain things are not discussed. When you don't have the language, it's much harder to assess, even within your own mind, what's happening to me, how am I feeling, what am I going through? And then you end up feeling gaslighted just because your environment gives you nothing to help you process.
And in fact, it's the opposite. It just tells you, hey, that you've been taken care of. You have a roof over your head, you have food, you're taken care of. What are you complaining for? Because, and then it looks like ungrateful. It's shown as, for you to even talk about the bad stuff, you're being ungrateful now. And even that can silence someone who maybe wants to speak out, especially if you don't have an environment where, even if you had the language to utilize to try and communicate with someone else who doesn't understand or understand the concepts that you're trying to talk to them about, you can only go so far.
That makes a lot of sense. We do have some time. We always end at 8 or 8:30. So if you have questions, please get them into us. I'm going to make some announcements while we have a lull. Please join us next week. We've got Rosalie Tierno, another dynamic young woman who's making a difference in mental health. She's working with NAMI Wake County right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Her own mental health journey began at 14. She's as she describes it, a 5th generation bipolar person. And she is establishing a support group in partnership with others for suicide attempt survivors. That type of support group is surprisingly rare. There are only a few strongholds in the country: California, Colorado, and now North Carolina. So please join us next week. Come and meet Rosalie Tierno. Please fill out our survey. If you're on Zoom, when you leave the meeting, a survey will magically appear on your screen. It really, really, really helps us to improve over time, to get feedback, to show our funders the value of what we do. And especially if you would like to submit a speaker or you're interested in submitting a video of the week, fill out that survey and leave your name and contact information. Let us know how you'd like to be involved. And that is all going to help us out a lot. Ooh, comment from someone in the chat box. I'm a part of that survivor group. Well, I am so glad that you're here with us tonight. Thank you for being here and thank you for sharing that. All right, another question from Gary. Could you speak more about the challenges and possibilities of being a Black producer in the film industry?
So just so that you know, as an executive producer, my goal is kind of behind the scenes as far as getting funding for the film itself and working on getting the documentary out and in front of the Black community and those who want to help the community. I feel that my director would probably be Antwon Lindsey, would probably be the one to be able to speak more on that, because prior to being an executive producer to Hush, I wasn't, I didn't study film, or I wasn't in the film industry before then. But I will say, from talking to Antwon, one thing that he noted is that it is hard, especially when trying to break into Hollywood, the major names. And he kind of took it upon himself to say, hey, I'm no longer going to try and get into a space that wasn't ever created for me. That is why he has taken it upon himself to create his independent films, and to put time and energy into growing it and just leaning on the resources that he had. And he's been very successful. When you don't have a seat at the table, you create your own table. And I think that's something that we're doing right now.
All right. So again, if you want to help with our fundraising effort, help Antwon build a kitchen. If you don't like what the system does, how it's so hard for small, independent, creative people, you can make a donation of any amount and help them out. All right. And of course, don't forget the NAMI walk. My marketing person will kill me if I don't say that.
Don't forget the walk.
NAMI walk. All right, question from Berea. Does Hush address the scientific research behind trauma leaving chemical marks on a person's genes? You may be more prone to anxiety, depression, addiction, etc., based on ancestral experiences. That, along with personal experience, it seems that the emotional mental landscape is heavy. Good question.
Yeah. It does touch on the generational, what we've carried throughout the generations, as far as like what we have experienced and what we transfer on to our children and how they kind of transfer that onto their children. But as far as the scientific part of it, I do not believe it touches too much on that. But it does kind of talk about how our experiences shape our future and shape what has happened from generation to generation. And I think that's just as important as well.
Yeah, I can't speak to the genetic piece, but there is recent research on what happens to a baby in utero when the mother is under extreme stress. So her system is being flooded with cortisol, flooded with adrenaline, and that means the baby's system, as they're developing, their whole nervous system is developing in that chemically intense environment. So that does have an impact on the child's mental health. And Paulina, of course, is quick to put a relevant link. Epigenetics is wild, she wrote, and there's a link in the chat box. I'm sure it's appearing on Facebook as well. Thank you for that question, Bria. So again, don't forget to join us next week with Rosalie, and please, please, please fill out our survey. Do you have any closing statements you'd like to make, Deland?
Let's see. Is that another question? Oh. As far as closing statements are concerned, I'm really excited about people seeing this film and this documentary and being able to kind of spark and have a discussion about it afterwards. I'm interested to see where this leads people. And we actually do have kind of a list of, and I'll pull it up for just a second, kind of a list of things that we want to accomplish when it comes to the documentary as well. So let me just pull this up. So some goals for Hush is that we want to screen the film to Black communities in 15 cities, which we've already began. Get 150 Black children free mental health counseling for 6 to 9 months. Get 150 Black men and women free mental health counseling for 6 to 9 months. Get 1,000 Black men and women registered to vote. Get 1,000 Black families registered with a credit union or a bank institution. We are looking into giving out scholarships as well, and just really and truly getting people connected with the resources necessary for them to lead a better life. The documentary is not where it ends. It's just the beginning. So we're not just focused on showing this film and like, okay, that's a great film. We truly want to create change within the Black community and to give those who are in the position to help the tools that they need to be effective and to reach the community. And that's something that I really look forward to, because I think it's something that I always think about. Life is hard as it is. Why make it harder on ourselves when we're not offering each other support or when we're putting each other down? And I think that this film is really going to bring folks together and open a lot of eyes and allow people to feel and remember that they're not alone, that other people are going through this as well, and they deserve to heal from it, and they deserve a better quality of life. But there are steps that need to be taken. So this is going to be more than just a film screening. It is going to be a place where people within the community and people in different mental health professions and businesses that speak to mental health will be able to come together and have open dialogue and really benefit from those interactions together.
All right, well, we certainly wish you all the very best with the film. And my hope is that lots of young people will see it and decide to become a mental health professional, because we really need more BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, mental health professionals, so that people can, if they need to speak with someone who looks like them, if that's going to really help them with their recovery, that they can do it. Right now, there just aren't nearly enough. Yeah, I was just reading, it's 4% of, I think it was psychologists are Black or African American, and that's not nearly enough. We really need that profession to look like America.
I
So,
hope. Well, no, definitely.
all right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thanks especially to Deland for being here and sharing your experience, your insights with us. We're excited about the film, and I hope we can partner on it further.
Yeah.
For those of you who are with us virtually on Zoom and Facebook, thank you for being part of our conversation tonight. If you're feeling alone out there, please reach out to us. We will work very hard to find a way to connect you with people who understand. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.